All right, welcome everybody to our next installment in the DMT Trip Report series. Today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. I have two trip reports here, side by side. One is of a positive experience. He's saying it cured his cluster headaches, which I know are extremely painful, and there are no traditional cures in Western medicine. And the other trip report, just bad time. Shadow people, he thought he was going to die, so I kind of wanted to explore the potentialities within psychedelics, because you hear a lot of good things about psychedelics, and you hear a lot of bad things on psychedelics. They are very polarizing in one direction or the other. So I'll discuss this more at the end of the video after I read the two trip reports, but yeah, here they are. I had my first cluster headache when I was 15. I can still remember it clearly. Although I only heard about migraine as some kind of nasty headache, I immediately, almost instinctively recognized it as such, strange as it may seem. The past few years, things have really improved for me though. Since I first tried mushrooms, the attacks are fewer in numbers. I do, however, doubt that the change is to be accredited to the mushrooms alone. The decrease in headache attacks started even before I ever tried mushrooms. At present, I don't really suffer from it. I get about once every other month, but the attacks are very painful and incapacitating. They usually last about 4 to 5 hours, including a 2-hour onset before the real headache. I've tried a lot of different things to treat the attacks as they occur. A large dose of strong Tylenols, smoking opium, weed, etc. Smoking weed didn't really affect the condition in any direction. Opium is quite alright actually, but it rarely falls in my lap, and when it does, I run out all too fast. Then, there's what I usually take, good old Tylenol with 30 milligrams of codeine. I crush 4 pills and add a glass of water and down quickly. It's no miracle cure, but better than nothing. This night, however, the migraine would appear at a very bad time. The plan was set for me and my buddy to venture off into hyperspace. This was a well-planned session. Before I even met up with him, I could feel it, a mild headache. It just hadn't caught my attention yet. We walked back to my apartment where the smoking was to take place. We prepared the place with some candles and incense and so on, but I was really starting to hesitate now. The headache grew worse by the minute, and now I knew that a lot more was to come. By coincidence, I was also all out of Tylenols. What was supposed to be a nice evening was turning into a nightmare. My typical symptoms when the headache really starts distinguishing itself include a painful pressure behind the left eye, which usually spreads up my forehead. Vision becomes severely impaired, but nausea is actually rare. Loud sounds and bright light usually triggers tremendous pain. Thinking becomes difficult. I didn't really feel like riding it all out without anything to help me through it, so an idea popped up in my head. The DMT. That was something we had plenty of right now and right here. As I said, I've had good experiences from mushrooms easing my headaches, and I was also well aware how ergot was used in treatment of migraines. The structural similarities between all of these compounds are obvious to anyone when comparing them side by side. I carefully considered what the worst thing that might happen could be. This was not all too obvious, as I was unsure if the headache would affect my trip in a negative way. I decided to go for it. At this point, I was in some pain. I had problems keeping my eyes open due to the fact that it hurt to look at things. Sounds were slightly distorted and amplified. The pipe was loaded with 30 milligrams and handed to me. I emptied the pipe in one huge breath and laid down on the couch. What happens next still baffles me. Right before I enter hyperspace, I feel something snap in my forehead, and just like that, my headache is gone. Not just dulled away by drugs, but actually completely gone. The experience itself was not affected by this at all, although I would still advise anyone attempting anything similar to use caution, and the headache didn't return when the experience ended. I'll definitely try this again when the circumstances are okay. So, phenomenal, cured his cluster headache. I don't know if that was like a permanent fix, or if it was just like a one-by-one thing, so it only cured that one, and maybe he'll go back if he has that problem in the future. But really interesting stuff, showing the potential for psychedelics to heal and transform our illnesses and ailments in such powerful ways. Taking large amounts of like opium or Tylenol and those things are traditionally painkillers, and then having it solved by a DMT trip into hyperspace is incredibly interesting, and really shows we don't know exactly what's going on. But on that same tangent, not knowing what's not going on is not a good thing. So our next trip report here is titled "The Worst 20 Minutes of My Life," and it's not like a dark DMT trip report, but it's kind of unsettling. So here we go. It did not last very long, but the experience itself is something that I feel needs to be shared with others who are planning to try DMT for their first time. Past drug experience: MDMA, MXE, cannabis, shrooms, 2CB, LSD, and alcohol. Myself and two of my best friends had gotten our hands on 200 milligrams of very pure DMT. We had been waiting to get some for months, and now was finally the time. We were in a dimly lit basement in a very relaxed state of mind. We had no scales, so we figured we'd just load up a bong full of the crystals and take it from there. Boy, was that a huge mistake. My friend L went first. He lit the crystals, waited for our homemade bong to fill up with smoke, there wasn't much, and he removed the cap and inhaled. He ran to the bed and waited in anticipation. He closed his eyes, searching for any sign of visuals, but found none. "It just feels kinda weird," he said. Disappointed, he took another hit, but again, no real effect. I was slightly frustrated and figured he must be doing something wrong, so I tried to hit myself. I sat cross-legged on the floor as my other friend, H, lit a freshly packed bowl of crystals. The smoke filled up a bit and he removed the cap for me. I sucked all the smoke in very fast and tried holding it in for as long as I could, 3 seconds, before coughing it all out. As I was coughing it out, the room was flashing different colors and warping very intensely. The walls were skewing and moving right before my eyes. Overwhelmed, I crawled onto a nearby recliner so I could sit back and enjoy the trip. "Holy shit," I kept saying out loud. I was hallucinating shadows on the wall that looked like the links of a fence. The room would go from purple to green to red all within a couple of seconds. "This is really tripping me out," I said, laughing. But that's when it hit me, the most intense body load I've ever felt. My heart was racing, easily over 170 beats per minute, far beyond the medical threshold for tachycardia. I could not move any of my limbs. I was paralyzed from head to toe. I started shitting myself, not literally, and decided I need to go to the ER, but I didn't want to scare my friends. I figured I just had to wait it out. As badly as I wanted to go to the hospital, I knew that wasn't an option. I told my friends that I was freaking out and I couldn't handle this. I remember acknowledging the fact that I was going to die. There was absolutely no doubt in my mind that I was going to die from DMT overdose on this old recliner. My parents would be so proud. I was about to ask one of my friends to stab me so I could skip this overwhelming trepidation I was experiencing. The visuals were starting to really scare me, so I closed my eyes. My friends tried calming me down, but their voices sounded really panicked, so it was making me feel worse. I told my friend L to come massage my back because I thought it would help me regain feeling in my body. I felt bad because he was still having a light trip, so my demands for a massage probably stressed him out a bit, but I really needed it. I took deep breaths and silently prayed to God for a few minutes. I'm agnostic, mind you. The massage helped, but during this time, my dumbass friend H was lighting a new bowl for himself. "Dude, I honestly wouldn't do that if I were you," I said, coming down. I just had the worst trip of my life. He didn't care and inhaled his hit, but like my other friend, he felt no effects. L stopped massaging me and packed another bowl. "You guys," I began to warn them again, "you don't understand the things I just saw. Why are you smoking more?" I was completely baffled at my friend's willingness to smoke more, something that almost ended my life. Regardless, they both smoked more, claiming they wanted to get where I was. Nothing happened to them, thank God, but something about this drug really affected me. I suspect that I have an adverse reaction to the drug because I have several enzyme deficiencies. Either that, or I just smoked way too much. I didn't break through, however, which leads me to believe that this drug simply will not work with my body. I do not plan on trying it again, and if you've ever asked me personally about DMT, I would say it almost killed me. So that's terrifying. With the DMT Trip Report series, I'm kind of interested in exploring like a wide variety of phenomena. Like, this made me theist, this made me atheist, this changed my life for the better, this cured my depression, this made me depressed. Exploring everything all over the board because I'm just curious what DMT is and what's going on with it. In regards to this trip, I don't want to be like, oh, I'm not certain that was DMT because it was like, you know, served him a negative experience. But it's the fact that his heart racing isn't characteristic of a DMT trip. He only held his hidden for 3 seconds. His friends didn't really trip on it. It very well could have been DMT, and he did just have a weird reaction, you know, personally, whether it's from his the enzyme deficiency he talked about or like literally anything else. But I do have a little bit of skepticism on whether that was actually DMT they were smoking. Maybe it was though, because what it's talking about here with the flashing different colors and warping very intensely, the walls were skewing and moving right before my eyes. That sounds right. I just found it weird his friends didn't trip. Maybe it was DMT, and his friends, with DMT, it's not like weed where you just take a hit and then exhale it. DMT, you need to hold it in your lungs for 15 to 20 seconds in order to get kind of peak effects. So I'm imagining his friends were just like taking a hit like weed and not realizing they had to hold it in. But we don't really know. Have a lot of sympathy for the author. This kind of sounds like a terrifying experience. Glad he's okay though. So with psychedelics still being illegal, there's still quite the air of mystery around the subject. Research and scientific thought really haven't penetrated what's going on with psychedelics, and so it's up to the common person to, you know, really deduce and figure out the truth behind what a psychedelic is, whether they're beneficial, whether they're harmful, maybe they're both, and, you know, like what we ideally want from psychedelics is to maximize rewards and minimize the risks. And that involves, we don't know exactly. There's no like straightforward, simple guidance, you know, floating out there like, this is how you take psychedelics, this is how you handle them, this is what to expect, this is what they are, this is what you do to have a good time, this is what you don't do in order to not have a bad time. You know, I think in recent years, the stigma is really starting to go away surrounding psychedelics. I know there's been quite a lot more, not only interest and kind of swaying away from the hippie movement in the 60s and 70s, you know, which had its ups and downs, right? But what we want is a divorce from psychedelics being seen in the same realm as other drugs, where you take this just to get high, and they can certainly be used that way with mixed results. But incorporating them and understanding them as something else, perhaps as I would term it, dropping a veil or revealing a veil in reality. Ideally, we want to integrate psychedelics into our societal complex structures as a tool for enlightenment, to heal, to gain knowledge, to find inner truth, to sort through trauma, or anything along those lines. We don't want it to tear us apart mentally. We don't want it to kill us like it almost did this guy. And we have no understanding of what's going on, and scientific thought is so precarious as to how it approaches psychedelics and what they have going on, what's just out there, like right in front of you. It's very, very frustrating. You know, seeing something like DMT being able to cure cluster headaches is kind of phenomenal. It's such a severe pain. It's not able to be treated by Western medicine. Perhaps psychedelics can also treat many other illnesses and diseases not currently treatable by Western medicine. And perhaps that's because psychedelics reveal a reality which is more in tune with the way things are. So if psychedelics can heal certain diseases and illness that are treatment resistant in Western medical thinking, perhaps that's revealing a flaw in Western medical thinking and saying, hey, like over here, like look at what psychedelics are telling you and what potentials they have to offer the world. But I really do think it's fear that divorces people from that truth. I know early LSD propaganda, you would get chromosome damage, and that was just complete BS. And there are dangers within psychedelics that are very real, very present, but they should be properly explored and not just be like, oh, it's kind of scary, and we're going to make it all legal, and just running away from something that has the potential to transform, heal, and empower society. But yeah, that was a trip report. Let me know if you'd like to see more of this content in the future. Feedback in the comments is really appreciated. It helps grow the channel. Yeah, thank you so much for watching. See you next time.